So we have officially started our cross-shopping comparison between the many electric vehicles that we have on our list. And the first vehicle that we got a chance to test drive was the 2022 Hyundai IONIQ 5 SE. And the experience, we went to a dealership in the Northeast Ohio area. Technically, the IONIQ 5 wasn't meant to be sold in Ohio yet. They are mainly focusing on the more zero-emission vehicle states. But, however, one of our local dealerships got certified to sell the IONIQ 5, so they are the first ones in a 50-mile radius of Cleveland to have them in stock.
Which was really cool, because we would have had to go either to Pittsburgh or up to New York or those are the closest ones, to be honest. So it was kind of nice to be like, oh, like we found it the one day, and I'm like, oh, let's just go see it.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
And that's the thing. It was like a total surprise to us. Like we were like, oh my gosh, they have these in stock. Let's go check them out. So we went up to the dealership. The dealership we went to was Classic Hyundai.
Which is the same auto group that we've bought lots of Volkswagens from Classic Volkswagen, like our ID4. So the auto group knows us pretty well.
And it was a pretty good experience. We got a chance to meet one of the sales associates. He allowed us to do a test drive of the SE. They also had a limited in stock that we got a chance to check out when we got back to the showroom after our test drive. But the whole point of today's video is that we want to talk about the 3 pros, cons, and then the research that we've did to prepare us for that test drive and experience the IONIQ 5. So, you want to start with pros?
Let's start with pros. So, for the IONIQ 5, we drove the SE all-wheel drive. That's the one that we drove. And some of the pros for us definitely has to be, number one, is the DC fast charging speed and or the charging architecture that is on the IONIQ 5 or its sister, the EV6. Like, that's a big pro for us.
Oh, yes. Yeah. The 800-volt architecture and allowing charging speeds from 0 to 80% in under 20 minutes for a vehicle that starts under $50,000 is just technologically impressive.
It is.
So that's like the biggest selling point for us is that charge rate. So that's a huge pro for us. Did not get a chance to test the charging on our test drive, but from the research we've done in the videos we've seen, it's very cool.
It's very cool.
Yes. The other thing with the IONIQ 5 is that it does have a fairly big wheelbase between each wheel, so the interior it feels huge. Like, it just feels really roomy on the inside.
Yeah, it definitely felt, that was another pro for us too, is the front seating area and the rear seating area felt so much larger than our ID4. And our ID4 is a really good size. And it's funny because we went to see the car for the first time, and the IONIQ 5 is parked right next to a Tucson, and then there was a Santa Fe right across from it. And we thought it was going to be more like almost Santa Fe size. I didn't think it was going to be like almost Tucson size, but I did like how low the height was for the IONIQ 5. I like how low it sat compared to our ID4. But kind of back to the interior volume, the front seat was so cavernous. Like the whole floor was flat, so we felt like we had so much room. What was interesting was the SE all-wheel drive does not have the sliding console, but the Limited did. So we kind of liked that storage option of being able to slide it in between the seats.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was the thing, basically like on all of our, the videos we've watched and all the research we've done, there were things that we picked up on when we got to the showroom that we didn't know about, including that sliding center console. It seems like they were kind of reserving some of those cool features for the higher trims. But, that is one of our last pros for the IONIQ 5 SE that we drove, is just how many features you get for that price point. You get dual 12-inch screens that offer a really responsive user interface. The touchscreen is incredibly responsive. The safety features were very, very sensitive, but in a very good way. I definitely think that they could provide a very safe ride. And, the vehicle itself, just the build quality and the insulation while we were on highway speeds was just... It was great.
It's quieter than our ID4, and our ID4 is very quiet, but the IONIQ 5 was like a whole nother level of quietness. And we were on the 19s too. We weren't on the 20s that are on the Limited, but it was so smooth on the highway. It was so smooth.
Yeah. And even going back to like the build quality, like the cloth seats that were in the SE were so supportive and firm. And the
Really
great thing
nice.
is that the driver's seat was powered still. Passenger seat was not, it was manual, but the fact that the driver's seat is powered with cloth, I was pretty happy to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now to get to some of our cons, Tyler was mentioning the fact that when we showed up, we thought that it was going to be the size of like a Santa Fe, and it wasn't. You know, the photos online and especially a lot of the videos we've watched is that they say that it has a wheelbase in terms of measurement bigger than a Palisade, and yes, it might have that, but it's not like a big SUV like the photos make it look. In fact, it's probably, I would say, like a larger hatchback size, like
Yeah.
almost like a larger version of like a Golf, like Volkswagen
Like a
Golf.
GTI.
Yeah. And with that being said, is that the storage space is also a little limited compared to what we are used to with our ID4. So a lot bigger than the Bolt.
Yes.
Much bigger.
Much bigger.
I think almost anything is bigger than the Bolt's trunk.
It's small.
Yeah, but that was one con that we noticed immediately when we opened the trunk. You know, the biggest point for us shopping right now and producing these videos is that we are moving across country. You know, in the next year, and with our dogs, we're obviously going to need space for them and our luggage and all that stuff. So the fact that it wasn't as big as we were anticipating is kind of a downside.
What was nice is like it had a frunk, but to be honest, that frunk was so small, and I thought that frunk size is the same as the underfloor storage in our ID4, because our ID4 has under the floor storage that you can probably fit. You can fit a charging cable and a few other like small bags, which we have in our car. And I just thought the trunk space was definitely kind of a downside for us,
Yeah.
because then we're going to have to really think about how we're going to be packing for this trip, because we're going to be gone for, you know, week and a half,
Yeah.
moving out west.
Yeah.
So it was important to us to see that. I mean, for daily use though, I think for us daily use, it's perfect. Like we're going to have no complaints with it. It's just our only complaint is going to be packing efficiently to move.
Yeah. No, I agree with that statement too. For a day-to-day vehicle, it has plenty of cargo space. Obviously, plenty of power too. I mean, the all-wheel drive version that we drove was super peppy.
It was really peppy.
The regen was fantastic as well. I just think that it's such a big factor for us with car shopping at the moment is making sure that we can fit all of our stuff as well as the dogs safely, which I have no doubt that we can. Maybe just a little Tetris, but
A little Tetris.
we could do it.
We could do it.
Yeah.
So another con that, you know, in this day and age we're probably going to run into, like a lot of other people are running into, are markups. The dealership that we went to had a ton of markups, especially on the limited. I think the limited trims, they were mostly $7,000 to $8,000, and then the SE all-wheel drives were about $4,000 to $5,000. And it's like, for the fact that we bought our ID4 last year and paid a little under MSRP, we just refused to pay over.
Yeah.
So we might just have to travel, which is perfectly fine, you know, if we want to get an IONIQ 5. Just kind of something to keep in mind. Like, we're seeing some markups for, you know, $10,000 to $15,000 out there, which is crazy.
Yeah. And fortunately, based on all the research we've done, we have found some dealerships that are out of state that are selling IONIQ 5s with no markup. Some of the dealerships are selling it based on the trim level with no markup. But we are fortunate to find one in New York that is selling, I believe, all trims with no markups.
For just MSRP.
Yep, just for MSRP.
And
so
then like $180 for, you know, tax, title, and fees, which is perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
I'd rather pay $180 than a few thousand. But I mean, that is one con, and you know, with the market the way it is, you know, with the chip shortage and logistic issues, you know, car shopping is starting to become a little bit more difficult because dealerships are marking them up. Great thing with dealerships is that you can always do your best to negotiate, but downside is that they don't always listen to, or at least they don't always agree to, you know, getting rid of that markup.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, and then kind of the third, you know, con for us for some things is we experienced the SE all-wheel drive trim for a test drive. We found that, you know, that is the base model that you can get for the IONIQ 5. There are some materials like on the dash, on the door panels that, you know, are cheaper. You're going to have your hard plastics and whatnot. But obviously we experienced the limited trim by looking at it, and it was just mind blowing how much difference there was between the SE and the Limited in terms of interior, choices, but the quality was still there in the SE. It was a really solid car.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, especially when you shut the doors, you really felt how well made the vehicle was. But as Tyler mentioned, the Limited did offer a few different material choices, like vegan leather. The one we got to experience was green on white with orange stitching.
It was beautiful.
It was very, very. It reminded me of like a Fiat in a way. Like it was very Italian design, and I was very impressed with it. But yes, if you are going for that base model, just know that you will kind of sacrifice some of those different material qualities, and you might find more hard plastics versus soft touch surfaces. But overall, I was really impressed with the IONIQ 5.
It was very, very nice.
Yeah.
Overall, I think this is our first video that we're doing on one of our cars in the list. So far, it's our favorite, out of the ones that we still have yet to drive.
Yes.
So it's still our favorite.
Yep. I would say that this is at the top of our list at the moment. And based on the research we've done, we want to make sure that we provide you guys that information as well. We've watched videos from Throttle House. We've also watched a massive amount of out of spec motors videos. We're a big fan of their team and what they produce. And we've watched Redline Reviews video as well as KBB. Or Kelly Blue Book, we're a big fan of their videos as well. So definitely do your research, check out Hyundai's website, but make sure that you find the deal that works best for you when it comes to the IONIQ 5. As for us, as we're going through these different vehicles, we're definitely keeping a tally of which ones are in the area.
Definitely.
Yes. So just to recap before we end this video, the vehicles that we are driving are the IONIQ 5, the Tesla Model Y, the Mustang Mach-E, the Tesla Model 3, the Polestar 2, and then the Kia EV6, which is the sister car on the same platform as the IONIQ 5. But from our research and what we've heard, it is a very different vehicle. Yes. So we are excited to get a chance to test drive that.
Don't forget the Volkswagen ID for all-wheel drive.
Oh, yes.
So same version as ours. That's just kind of something we put out there just in case.
Yes.
Thanks
for reminding me. I forgot. As you can tell, that car is on our list, but I'm more interested in the other one.
If we can't find anything at all, and once our bulk gets bought back, we need to get into another car just so we have something for our trip. That's just one to put on the list.
Yeah. Well, anyways, definitely keep an eye out for our other EV car shopping videos. If you like this video, make sure you like and share with your friends. And as always, please consider subscribing to Everyday EV. And
make every day electrifying.
We'll see you in the next one.